what do you think of when you think of Cupid? Because I am betting that you don't think of some kind of big strapping hunk, right? I am betting you think of Cupid more like this. Let's get the first image up. So more like this. This little fella here with the arrow. In fact, this is an image that is absolutely full of little cupids. They're not all actually Cupid, but they are all little putty, little Cupid's little friends. And this is the whole image. This is an image by Titian. And look, it's like there's a field of them. There's a whole field of gorgeous, squidgily little cupids. This is the first painting, one of several paintings that Titian completed for a patron called Alfonso d'Este, and it's quite early in his career. So Titian was only in his 20s when he painted this. He lived to a ripe old age, and it is a really rather faithful translation of a ancient Greek text by a man called Philostratus, and it's called The Worship of Venus. So Titian painted this in 1518. So here is Venus over on the right hand side of the painting, and I'm going to say I'm thinking that she's looking a little bit perturbed. And well, she might, because she is surrounded by these little chaps who are all doing little tiny toddler things, and it is as a toddler, I think, that most of us think of Cupid. So we've got this one here. Let's go back to this one here, who is he's drawn his arrow in his bow, and he's ready to fake shoot a little friend who is over on the other side of the painting. So if I bring you back to the painting here, so you can see to the right hand side you've got the little guy with the arrow, and then nearer to the left hand side there's a little putti who's sort of standing up, and he's got his little arms up in mock surrender. So there he is there. And surrounding this one, who's got his arms up, there's all little babies, you know. So this one over on the right hand side is eating an apple. And the one below him is kind of, I don't know, is he squidging his knee? I think he's going, oh, you're cute. And then you've got others. So you can see the one right in the center of the painting here who's got his arms up. I'm going to say I don't think he's that bright, because he's got his arms up to maybe try and catch some apples. Some of the putti have flown up into the trees and are sort of shaking the trees and throwing down apples to a few of their mates who are a little bit more intelligent. You can see some here on the left hand side of this painting. They're holding up baskets. So they're going to catch the apples, but yeah, this one in the centre here, he thinks he can do just as well with his bare hands, but he's going to find out he can't. So basically, this is a glorious image of lots of little putti doing lots of little putti things, which is to say these are all doing little baby toddler things. I mean, look at that, that's so cute, isn't it? Two little squidgy toddlers, and that's great. It's particularly great for art. So this 1518, this was one of the first times really that artists painted little babies as little babies. For various reasons, before that, babies were quite often depicted as little men, so kind of little old men, maybe little old women, but sort of bald and wizened, and they didn't have the chubbiness of a real baby. They were just a shrunken adult. So you know that didn't really work at all. But Titian really gets it right, and not only is he getting the actual sort of the chubbiness, the squidginess, the cuddliness absolutely right, he's also getting the sort of the mannerisms and the little things that babies actually would do right. And this is a painting that absolutely glorifies that. His friend Aretino, Titian's friend Aretino, said of this work that Titian was painting with milk and blood. So I love that. So that is, that he was really bringing these babies to life. Back to Venus there, who is looking a bit perturbed. Because she is surrounded by all of these babies, one of whom, of course, well, maybe not one of these, but her son is also very similar. And so the question that I'm asking this week is, did Cupid ever grow up? $1 million question, isn't it? And there is in fact, let's just stay on Venus actually for a second. There is in fact a story within Greek mythology that deals with this question. I don't know whether it's a question that you've asked yourselves very often. It's probably something that you haven't really thought about, but now you're thinking about it. You're like, yeah, actually that's true. He is always a baby, and this became to be a problem for Venus in this story. So in this story, Venus goes and meets a friend of hers, Themis, and Themis says, "Oh, hi, do you want a cup of tea? Come in." And Venus is like, "Oh, what's the time?" "Okay, well, it's like 5:30. It's nearly 6 o'clock. Can we open a bottle of wine? I've got something I really want to run by you." So Themis is like, "Ooh, okay, okay, this is serious stuff." Yep. Wine open, glass in. She says, "Okay, so what do you want to discuss?" And Venus says, "Well, my son, Cupid." And Themis says, "Well, yes, the little guy with the wings and the bow and arrow who shoots people and makes them fall in love." And she said, "Yeah, that's the one." She said, "Well, I'm really, really kind of slightly worried about him because he's been a baby like this for hundreds of years. He just hasn't got past the toddler stage." Emma says, "Oh yeah, okay, I see what you mean." I'm saying hundreds of years because this is Greek mythology, time, who knows, in Greek mythology. So Themis thinks about it, and she's quite wise, Themis, and she says, "Well, I tell you what, Venus, I think the problem might be that Cupid doesn't have a companion. So I think that actually if you have another child, then maybe Cupid will grow up alongside this other child." So Venus, "Oh, okay, yeah, actually that, I get that. That's a great idea. Fantastic." So Venus does have another little baby, and she has another boy, and she calls him Anteros. Now we're calling Cupid, and Venus, but actually they're Greek names, so what I should really be calling them are Aphrodite for Venus and Eros for Cupid. So Anteros, sort of connected to Eros. So Anteros became the god of requited love. So Cupid makes people fall in love, and Anteros sort of enables the love to grow, because love can only grow, of course, if it's requited. Grow in a normal, reasonable, healthy, proper way if it's requited. So this is what happens. So she has this baby, and depicted here with Cupid, and Cupid does start to grow. So when he's with Anteros, he does grow. Interestingly enough, try as I might, I couldn't really find any images of Cupid and Anteros as young men together. And maybe that's because these were only fleeting moments, because what happened was that yes, Cupid would grow when he was with Anteros. Fantastic, brilliant news. But there's a big problem with this, because when he is not with Anteros, guess what happens? He shrinks back into a tiny bitty baby again. So, okay, doesn't really quite work. an interesting myth. But I want to show you this. This is not a piece of great art by any stretch of the imagination. It's probably 15th century, I should think. It's a tondo in Florence, in the Villa Salviati. I don't know who created this, but what it does depict rather beautifully in terms of the composition and the idea, if not necessarily perhaps the execution. What it does depict is Cupid, who is on the right hand side of this image, who has his arrows. Let's see if I can bring up a bigger. There we go. Who has his arrows, and you can see that he's sort of making his arrows, and he's forging them in a fire here. So this is showing, so he's the one who's going to fire the arrow, and he is the one that is going to spark love. But then on the other side of this image, you have Anteros, who has his bellows. So he is the one that's stoking the love. And I do think that is really quite lovely. So there they are again together. So Eros and Anteros. So did Cupid ever grow up? Well, the answer is yes, but only sometimes. I'm going to say we all know men like that. We all know people like that, maybe. To finish, I want to show you this. This is a fresco from the House of Love Punished that is in Pompeii. So we're going back now, what, kind of 1st century BC. And so we've got Eros and Anteros again, and Anteros is the child on the right hand side with his mum Venus, or Aphrodite, looking, and he's actually pointing. You can see that he's pointing over to Cupid, looking a little bit smug, and you can tell by the look on Venus's face that she is not that happy about something. Excuse me. So she's all cross with Cupid, who is on the other side of the painting. Look, and you can kind of tell by his body language, even in this ancient fresco, that he's kind of looking a little bit sheepish, because he's being led in by Pythos, who is the goddess of oratory oratory, I guess, really, and so she's bringing Cupid in to say sorry to his mum because Cupid has hit somebody or fired his arrow at the wrong person, and so he's got something wrong, and so he's created another mess with his meddling with his arrows, and this obviously is delighting Anteros. So I think that's a really charming little image. Yeah, Cupid is not convinced that he's not going to be told off, and I think he might be told off, but ultimately he will be forgiven because he is the one arguably closest to his mum. They are very, very often depicted together, and Anteros, the god of requited love, doesn't get so much of a look in, which is rather a shame, really. But I guess that if he had played a much larger part in Greek mythology, the stories wouldn't be quite so rich, would they? I'm going to say that. So there is your answer. I shall turn images off and I shall turn comments. Turn comments on. Yes, did you know that? Is that a story that you'd ever heard before? It wasn't a story that I knew particularly. So, oh, thank you very much. Loved it, a great session. Thank you. So next month we are moving on to March. Duh. And we're going to have a look at the origins of March. I didn't do this month the star sign, the origin of Aquarius, the star sign. So I don't know, maybe we'll have to wait a whole year to come back round to that one, because that's quite interesting. A unique chat. Thank you, Holly. And of course, next month, well, of course, but next month we also have International Women's Day. So I've got a couple of great women artists that I want to talk about in connection with International Women's Day. Yeah, they're not very well known at all, but Sofonisba Anguissola and Lavinia Fontana, both 16th century artists. Have you heard of them? Quite possibly not, but you will have done by the end of next month. Aquarius is your sign, Adrian. I'm sorry I didn't. I was too wrapped up in Valentine's, but I will do Aquarius. But you might have to wait a while. Sorry. So we'll do International Women's Month, the origins of March, and we'll also do Pisces. And the origins of Pisces. Sorry, Adrian, I've upset you. I can tell you what the origin of Aquarius is. It's all to do with Ganymede. Ganymede, the cupbearer. So really quickly, okay, quick preview for next year, if you remember this. So Ganymede is a really beautiful boy, and he and Zeus falls in love with him, and he basically carries him off as an eagle. So Zeus comes down as an eagle and carries Ganymede off into the heavens, and he doesn't want to be separated from him, and so he makes Ganymede his cupbearer. And then sort of at the end of the time of the gods, he still doesn't want to be separated, and so they are thrust into the sky as a constellation. That's the short version. Okay? One would only think you could hear these things, but only when I come to you with explanations. Oh, thank you, Holly. I hope I explain things. Some things throw up more questions than answers, don't they? But that's just art and art history for you. That's life for you, really. But I'm glad. I'm glad if I can pique some interest and maybe answer a few questions and have fun, really. That's what it's all about, isn't it? A little bit of entertainment and a little bit of art history. That's a good combination. And on that note, I am going to go away and do the washing up. Cupid was a troublemaker, yes. He was a little troublemaker. But love gets us into trouble, doesn't it? So I will see you next week. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a lovely, lovely weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.